people think from the movies that we become like this shadow government and we control everything.
Right.
In fact, we mostly hate each other. For the vast majority of CIA officers don't get along because we're all basically cut from a very similar cloth, right? We're all type A, we're all perfectionists, we're all egotistical, we're all, self-motivated and self-interested. So when you put 5 people into a room and you tell them they have to work together, what's really going on in all 5 of their heads is, how do I work together enough that I can actually be the best by, differentiating myself from the other 4 people? Because it's still it's still a government job. It's still a pyramid to get to the top. They might train and recruit 200 new field officers a year, but there's only one director of the National Clandestine Service or one director of the Director of Operations, right? So you not all 200 people are going to make it up there. So there's a huge attrition rate as you go up the chain. So this idea that we all somehow collaborate together to run the government secretly is a ridiculous concept. What actually happens is we create very strong bonds of loyalty to individuals within the organization that supersedes our loyalty to the organization as a whole. And the reason I say that is because, we're talking about the Danny Jones podcast. We're talking about the Julian Dory podcast, both of which are podcasts that we have been on, both of which are podcasters that have essentially grown up with us. Danny's almost doubled in size.
Yeah.
And Julian's like quadrupled in size. Right. And this was all before you, like they were reaching out to you before you had a podcast. I've had a podcast on YouTube for a month and a half.
And how many subs do you have?
30,000 subscribers on there. 30,000 subscribers on the podcast and 80,000 subscribers on my original channel. My original channel was me like not knowing what I was doing either.
Right.
Right. But the reason those numbers grew were because of the early on help, even as begrudging as it was from Danny.
Right.
Right. But that early kind of incubation period where they were like, hey, let's have a conversation and let me share you with my audience. And then it just grew from there. Right. I mean, I've done some of the biggest podcasters out there in the space. I've sat with Lex Friedman. I've sat with Tom Bilyeu. I've sat with, there's countless numbers of incredible podcasters that I've had a chance to work with. Chris Williamson and Brian Rose, Patrick Bet-David, like huge podcasters. And it all points back to those first initial podcasts with Julian and Danny, right?
Yeah.
So I feel an incredible amount of loyalty to both of them. So I do laugh when you're like, you're Danny Jones. Who the hell is that? That will actually never happen.
Right.
Right. Because I will always remember you, Danny, Julian, these people who back when I had very little competition for my time, dude, I remember getting your first email. I remember logging in because I was still working for somebody else and I was trying to build my own business. And then I get this email from you. I don't even know how you found me. Oh, Kilo 23.
Yeah. Kilo. Yeah.
So I get this email from you and I'm like, it was so different from my daily grind at my corporate job that I was like, yeah, I'll totally do this. I'll read this guy's story and the whole, it was Frank
Amadeo.
Amadeo.
Listen, my guys love Frank Amadeo.
Absolutely, dude. I'm waiting for that movie to come out. I'm waiting for someone to pick up that story.
Me too. So I was going to say, it's funny because in that Amadeo thing, you talked about how with the CIA, how most of the people in the CIA are, well, you were just saying like type A, but you said, that there's they're off, like they're narcissists. They're,
right.
They're different. They have different type of personality defects, but that's what makes them unique and amazing, and that specifics within that organization. And it's the same thing I say about like narcissists. I'm like, yeah, you're right. They're jerks. They're narcissists. They're self-absorbed, but but they're also the guy that gets it done. Like narcissists tend to either be running be a CEO running a $1 billion company, or they're in prison. You know what I'm saying? Like very few of them, unless obviously there's a scale,
right?
But that's what it takes to push that envelope. It takes that guy that's willing to, step on people and push people and be a bully. And, it doesn't make you super likable, but it's the guy that gets things done.
And it makes you likable to other people like you.
Yeah.
And guess what that means? That means all of a sudden, instead of having 50 friends that are kind of worthless,
right,
you have 5 friends who are all incredibly valuable because they're all cutting throats on their way to the top too.
Right.
Now, if you don't want to be the person cutting throats, that's fine. Turn off this fucking podcast because you're not the one we're trying to talk to. But if you are the one who's like, I kind of want to cut throats. Yeah. I kind of want to step on people's shoulders. I kind of think I am smarter and better than other people, but I'm hiding it so that I can blend in with society
yeah.
because I don't want to be criticized for the way that I think. And I don't want to be, I don't want people to think less of me. I don't want people to judge me. No, fuck that. Let them judge you. Invite the judgment because you just identified somebody who is threatened by you. If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip or here to see the full podcast episode.